What if I told you that to become truly strong you don't need to do more repetitions, lift more weight, or spend hours exhausting yourself, but instead learn to master something much more difficult, staying still under tension? It sounds contradictory, but here is the truth almost no one tells you. The deepest strength is not built by moving nonstop, but when your body is able to hold itself firm, stable, and aligned while everything in you wants to give up. And that is why, in this video, you will discover a little-known approach, supported by principles of functional training and the science of neuromuscular control, that can develop real strength, joint stability, mental endurance, and body control without weights, without a gym, and without endless routines. If you are one of those who train hard, finish sweaty, and still feel that your body trembles when it must remain firm, whether in a posture, in balance, or under sustained effort, what you are about to learn can completely change the way you understand training, because it is not about moving more, but about learning to hold better. For decades we were told the same formula: to gain strength you have to do more repetitions, lift more weight, move faster, and finish every workout completely exhausted. However, exercise science has shown that there is another equally powerful path, and in many cases more effective, that almost no one takes advantage of: isometric training. This method is based on something apparently simple, but deeply challenging for the body: maintaining a static position while the muscles remain in continuous contraction without changing their length. What happens internally during that non-movement is surprising. Studies in exercise physiology have shown that isometric contractions generate simultaneous activation of multiple motor units, which improves neuromuscular coordination, the efficiency of the nervous system, and the body's ability to produce force in specific positions. In addition, this type of work strengthens tendons and joint structures, increasing stability and significantly reducing the risk of injuries, which is why it is widely used in physical rehabilitation processes and also in high-performance programs for elite athletes. But its impact goes beyond the physical. When you hold a posture under tension, you are not only training muscles, you are also training your tolerance to effort, your capacity for concentration, and your mental endurance, key elements for performance in any discipline. In other words, isometric training does not only build visible muscle, but what truly determines functional strength: the ability to control your body when it is under stress. In this way, next you will discover 6 fundamental isometric exercises that activate the entire body without the need for a gym or equipment, designed to improve posture, strengthen the deep core, optimize balance, increase joint stability, and develop a much more efficient mind-muscle connection. The most interesting part is that these exercises do not seek to tire you out with endless movements, but to teach you something much more valuable: how to hold, resist, and maintain control when your body begins to tremble, which is precisely the moment when true strength begins to be built. Exercise 1. Isometric Bridge. The isometric glute bridge is one of the most underestimated exercises, but also one of the most powerful for counteracting the silent effects of the modern lifestyle: spending hours sitting. From a scientific point of view, prolonged sedentary behavior causes a phenomenon known as gluteal inhibition, in which the glute muscles, especially the gluteus maximus, lose neuromuscular activation capacity due to lack of use. This forces other structures, such as the lower back and hip flexors, to compensate for functions that do not belong to them, which in the long term generates muscular imbalances, lower back pain, and postural alterations. This is where the isometric bridge becomes especially valuable. By lifting the hips and holding the position without movement, a sustained contraction occurs that reactivates the deep muscle fibers of the glute, while strengthening the stabilizing musculature of the posterior core. Studies in biomechanics have shown that sustained isometric contractions improve the mind-muscle connection, increasing the efficiency with which the nervous system recruits muscle fibers, which translates into a better ability to generate force and maintain stability. In addition, this exercise distributes the load evenly between the pelvis, the spine, and the hips, helping to restore healthy movement patterns that are altered by sedentary behavior. But the impact of the isometric bridge goes far beyond strengthening the glutes. When you hold this position, your body enters a state of global activation that involves the entire posterior chain: glutes, hamstrings, spinal erectors, and deep stabilizing abdominal muscles. This simultaneous activation improves what in physiology is known as lumbopelvic stability, a key factor for preventing injuries, optimizing posture, and increasing efficiency in any daily or sports movement. In fact, research in rehabilitation has shown that strengthening the posterior chain through isometric exercises can significantly reduce chronic lower back pain and improve postural alignment in sedentary individuals. In addition, because it is a sustained contraction, the time under muscular tension increases, which stimulates adaptations both in muscle fibers and in connective tissues, promoting muscular endurance and joint health. And perhaps the most interesting part is the neurological component. Holding the position while the body begins to tremble trains effort tolerance, concentration, and the ability to maintain control under fatigue, skills that are fundamental not only for physical performance, but also for mental resilience. Exercise 2. Bar hang. The bar hang is one of those exercises that seem too simple to be effective, but that actually trigger one of the most complete neuromuscular responses the human body can experience. Hanging from a bar without performing pull-ups activates what in exercise physiology is known as global isometric contraction, where multiple muscle groups are forced to work simultaneously to support body weight against gravity. From the very first second, the muscles of the forearm and hand begin to generate an intense gripping force, a factor that science has identified as a direct indicator of general health and functional longevity, since grip strength is strongly correlated with the organism's total neuromuscular capacity. As the seconds pass, the stabilizing muscles of the shoulder come into play, such as the rotator cuff, the rhomboids, and the trapezius, whose main function is to keep the shoulder joint centered and protected. This process strengthens not only the muscle, but also the tendons and ligaments, increasing the structural integrity of one of the most mobile, and therefore most vulnerable, joints in the human body. In addition, studies in biomechanics have shown that passive and active hangs improve spinal decompression, reducing intervertebral pressure and promoting disc hydration, which can help decrease lower back discomfort and improve posture in the long term. But the true power of the bar hang does not lie only in its muscular benefits, but in the profound neurological reorganization it provokes in the body. When you hang, your nervous system faces a primary challenge: maintaining stability under a constant load pulling you downward. This forces the activation of unconscious postural control mechanisms that coordinate the work between the core, the back, and the shoulders to prevent structural collapse. This phenomenon is known as reflex stability, a fundamental skill that allows the body to react and sustain itself in situations of physical stress. In addition, because it is a sustained contraction, the exercise increases time under muscular tension, which favors adaptations in type I fibers, those responsible for endurance, and improves the efficiency of neuromuscular recruitment. There is also a powerful mental component. Holding on while the grip begins to fail and the muscles tremble trains effort tolerance and the ability to remain under discomfort, skills that performance psychology associates with greater physical and mental resilience. Exercise 3. Isometric bird dog. The exercise known as the isometric bird dog is one of the most effective, and at the same time most underestimated, tools for developing deep stability and neuromuscular control, two fundamental pillars of functional strength. At first glance it seems like a simple movement, getting into a quadruped position and simultaneously extending one arm and the opposite leg while keeping the rest of the body completely still. However, what occurs internally is extraordinarily complex. From a scientific point of view, this exercise activates what is called the lumbopelvic stabilization system, a network of deep muscles that includes the transverse abdominis, the multifidus, the spinal erectors, and the glutes. These muscles are not designed to generate large movements, but to keep the spine stable against external forces, such as gravity or body rotations. Studies in biomechanics have shown that exercises like the bird dog generate significant activation of these deep stabilizers without subjecting the spine to excessive compressive loads, which makes it an exercise widely used both in lower back pain rehabilitation and in injury prevention programs. By holding the position, the body is forced to coordinate multiple muscular chains at the same time, improving communication between the nervous system and the muscles, something known as neuromuscular efficiency. But the true value of the isometric bird dog goes far beyond strengthening the core. It trains the body's ability to resist movement, a skill known in physiology as antirotational stability. In real life and in sports, The body rarely fails due to lack of strength to move. What usually fails is the ability to remain firm when external forces try to destabilize it. This exercise reproduces exactly that challenge. When you extend one arm and the opposite leg, your center of gravity changes immediately, and the body must activate automatic postural reflexes to avoid tilting, rotating, or collapsing. This process involves extremely precise coordination between the brain, the spinal cord, and the sensory receptors of muscles and joints, known as proprioceptors. Sustained repetition of this position improves proprioception, that is, the body's ability to perceive its position in space, which translates into better balance, more efficient movements, and lower risk of injuries. In addition, maintaining the posture while the muscles begin to tremble develops muscular endurance and tolerance to sustained effort, strengthening not only the body but also the mental capacity to remain focused under discomfort. Exercise 4. Hollow hold. The hollow hold is considered by specialists in functional training and exercise physiology as one of the most complete movements for developing core stability, precisely because its effectiveness does not depend on movement, but on the ability to sustain a deep and continuous contraction. When you place yourself in this position, lower back firmly pressed against the floor, legs and shoulders elevated, the body is forced to intensely activate the transverse abdominis, the rectus abdominis, and the internal obliques, muscles that form the anterior stabilization system of the spine. From a scientific perspective, this exercise works under the principle of core stiffness, a concept widely studied in biomechanics that describes the ability of the core to create a solid structure that protects the spine against external forces. Research in electromyography has shown that the hollow hold generates levels of muscular activation higher than many traditional dynamic abdominal exercises, especially in the transverse abdominis, considered the key muscle for spinal stability. This muscle acts as a natural belt that compresses the abdomen and reduces the load on the vertebrae, which explains why this exercise is frequently used in rehabilitation programs to prevent and treat lower back pain. By maintaining the lower back in contact with the floor, the body learns to control pelvic position, correcting deficient postural patterns associated with sedentary behavior and weakening of the deep core. However, the impact of the hollow hold is not limited to strengthening visible abdominal muscles. Its true power lies in transforming the core into an integral support system for the entire body. In daily life and athletic performance, the core does not function as a generator of movement, but as a stable base from which forces are transmitted between the lower and upper body. When you hold the hollow hold position, your central nervous system activates what is known as muscular co-contraction, a process in which multiple muscle groups contract simultaneously to create stability. This improves neuromuscular efficiency and the body's ability to maintain alignment under physical stress. In addition, sustained contraction increases time under tension, which stimulates adaptations in endurance muscle fibers and improves the body's capacity to tolerate prolonged efforts. There is also an important proprioceptive component. As you struggle to maintain the posture while the abdomen begins to tremble, the brain receives constant information about body position, refining motor control and coordination. This process has a direct impact on injury prevention, since a strong and stable core reduces the muscular compensations that often cause overload in the lower back. Exercise 5. Isometric push-up. The isometric push-up is one of the most effective methods for developing what in exercise physiology is called strength under sustained tension, a fundamental capacity that goes far beyond traditional strength based on repetitions. Unlike a conventional push-up, where movement allows small moments of rest between phases, in the isometric version the muscle remains in continuous contraction while holding a fixed position, generally at mid-range. This seemingly simple detail produces a very intense physiological response. From a scientific point of view, maintaining the posture forces a simultaneous and prolonged recruitment of muscle fibers from both the pectoralis major and the anterior deltoid, the triceps brachii, and the scapular stabilizers. Studies in electromyography have shown that sustained isometric contractions can generate levels of muscular activation comparable to, and even higher than, those of dynamic exercises with external load, especially when performed near the point of greatest mechanical disadvantage, as occurs in the mid-phase of a push-up. In addition, this type of contraction increases time under tension, a key factor for stimulating neuromuscular adaptations, improving muscular endurance, and strengthening connective tissues such as tendons and ligaments. This not only increases strength, but also improves shoulder joint stability, one of the most complex and injury-prone joints in the human body. But the true impact of the isometric push-up is not limited to local muscular development. Its deepest effect occurs in the coordination between the nervous system and the body's musculature. When you hold the position, the brain must maintain constant and precise activation to prevent the body from collapsing under gravitational load. This process improves what specialists call intermuscular neuromuscular control, that is, the ability of different muscle groups to work in synchrony. At the same time, the core is intensely activated to maintain trunk alignment, transforming the exercise into a global task that involves the abdomen, lower back, and glutes. This integrated activation improves force transmission between the upper and lower body, which has a direct impact on the efficiency of daily and sports movements. In addition, from a metabolic perspective, sustained isometric contractions temporarily reduce blood flow within the muscle, generating an accumulation of metabolites such as lactate, stimulating adaptations that increase effort tolerance and muscular endurance. At a mental level, holding the position while the muscles tremble trains the ability to maintain concentration and control under fatigue, a skill associated with greater physical and psychological resilience. In essence, the isometric push-up is not just an exercise to strengthen the chest and arms. It is a powerful tool to develop structural stability, improve neuromuscular coordination, and build a much more functional form of strength, one that allows the body to remain firm and efficient even when under maximum tension. Exercise 6. Wall sit. The wall sit is one of the most studied and widely used isometric exercises in both athletic training and physical rehabilitation, precisely because of its ability to generate deep muscular activation without the need for movement. When you position yourself with your back supported against the wall and maintain your knees at an angle close to 90 degrees, the body enters a sustained isometric contraction that simultaneously involves the quadriceps, the glutes, and the hamstrings, in addition to the stabilizing muscles of the hips and the core. From a scientific point of view, this position forces the thigh muscles to produce a constant force to counteract gravity, which significantly increases time under tension, a key factor for stimulating muscular adaptations and improving endurance. Research in electromyography has shown that the isometric squat generates high levels of activation in the quadriceps, especially in the vastus medialis, a fundamental muscle for knee stability and injury prevention. In addition, since it is a contraction without joint movement, this exercise reduces mechanical stress on the joints, making it an ideal tool for strengthening the legs in people with knee discomfort or in recovery processes. It has also been observed that sustained isometric contractions can improve tendon tissue density and the muscle's ability to tolerate prolonged loads, something essential for long-term joint health. However, the impact of the wall sit goes far beyond physical strengthening. As the seconds pass, a physiological phenomenon known as partial blood flow occlusion occurs, in which sustained contraction temporarily reduces circulation within the muscle. This generates an accumulation of metabolites such as lactate and hydrogen ions, responsible for the sensation of muscular burning. Far from being something negative, this process stimulates metabolic adaptations that improve muscular endurance and the body's ability to withstand prolonged efforts. But perhaps the most interesting aspect occurs at the neurological and psychological level. When you hold the position while the body begins to tremble, the nervous system enters a state of high activation to maintain postural control, which strengthens neuromuscular coordination and joint stability. At the same time, what in performance psychology is known as discomfort tolerance is trained, the ability to remain in a physically demanding situation without yielding to the impulse to quit. This mental component is key, since real functional strength does not depend only on the ability to produce force, but also on sustaining it over time. Beyond learning the technique of each exercise, there is a key element that determines whether you will truly obtain deep and lasting results with isometric training: understanding why holding static positions transforms the body in a way that movement alone cannot achieve. From exercise physiology, when you maintain an isometric contraction for several seconds, a phenomenon known as progressive motor unit recruitment occurs, in which the nervous system begins by activating small muscle fibers and, as fatigue increases, incorporates increasingly larger and more powerful fibers. This process improves neuromuscular efficiency, that is, the brain's ability to communicate with the muscles in a precise and coordinated way. Unlike traditional training based on fast repetitions, where part of the movement relies on inertia, isometric exercises eliminate any external assistance. All the effort comes from active muscular contraction. This explains why they generate significant improvements in functional strength, the kind that allows you to support the body, maintain posture, and resist prolonged loads in daily life. In addition, research in biomechanics has shown that sustained contractions strengthen not only muscle fibers, but also connective tissues, tendons, ligaments, and fascia, increasing joint stability and reducing the risk of injuries. This effect is particularly important in an era dominated by sedentary lifestyles, where movement patterns become deficient and the body loses its natural ability to support itself efficiently. But perhaps the most powerful benefit of isometric training is found not only on the physical level, but in the profound neurological and psychological adaptation it generates. When you hold a posture while the muscles begin to tremble, the nervous system enters a state of high activation to maintain postural control against fatigue. This process strengthens what specialists call reflex stability, the body's automatic ability to resist external forces without collapsing. At the same time, an accumulation of metabolites occurs within the muscle due to the temporary reduction of blood flow, a phenomenon known as partial occlusion. Far from being harmful, this response stimulates metabolic adaptations that increase muscular endurance and tolerance to prolonged effort. In parallel, the brain trains a fundamental skill for physical performance and daily life: tolerance to discomfort. Remaining in a demanding position while the body asks to move strengthens neural circuits associated with concentration, self-control, and mental resilience. For this reason, isometric exercises do not only build muscle, they build a deeper form of strength, the ability to remain firm under pressure. Taken together, these principles explain why integrating this type of training not only improves strength, posture, and stability, but also re-educates the body to function in a more efficient, coordinated, and resilient way in the face of the physical demands of the real world. Now you know that true strength is not always built with more movement, more repetitions, or more intensity, but with something much more powerful and rarely trained: the ability to remain firm when the body begins to give in. Each of these exercises is a tool for you to develop real stability, deep control, and a kind of strength that is not only seen, but felt in your posture, in your balance, and in your physical confidence day by day. But remember something important: understanding it changes nothing, saving it for later doesn't either. The only thing that transforms your body is starting. That is why, if you made it this far, write the word "firm" in the comments as a commitment to yourself to begin today. And if this content was very helpful to you, give this content a like so more people can discover this smart way of training, and subscribe to keep learning practical strategies that help you become stronger, more stable, and more resilient from the foundation. Your progress does not begin tomorrow, it begins the moment you decide to act. Your body and your health will thank you for it. Thank you for watching this video, and see you soon.